Hey Mentees, welcome to another edition of Near Mint Collective Gaming Edition, where today I get to talk about one of my favorite franchises in video games, not Mario, not Zelda, but another franchise that is celebrating its 35th anniversary, and that would be the franchise close to my heart, Metroid. Dun, ding, dun. Even though Nintendo's love for Metroid has been, how do you say, middle child-ish, there are a lot of fantastic games that have come from this. The series was created by the late Gunpei Yokoi, who we tragically lost way too soon. But his design and engineering with the Game Boy and this game, Kid Icarus, that actually Kid Icarus and Metroid share the same engine, isn't that interesting, led to this amazing franchise. And even its own genre, the Metroidvania style game, where you progress by getting an item and getting a little further and backtracking, and it still is addictive today as it was then. Where does the name Metroid even come from? If you look at a Tokyo subway map, the Tokyo Metro map, it kind of looks a bunch of lines and things. And then if you look at the map of the planet Zebes, kind of looks... they look very similar. So, Metro, and then Samus originally was pitched to be an android. So, Metro, Android, Metroid. Now you know. Nintendo didn't completely forget about the Metroid franchise. At this year's E3 2021 Virtual Edition, Nintendo unveiled something called Metroid Dread. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you might have heard about an old project about 15 years ago that was supposed to be for the Nintendo DS, called Metroid Dread. But apparently, according to the longtime series producer Yoshio Sakamoto, there wasn't the technology in order to make that original vision come alive. And apparently they tried to restart the project again, and it didn't work a second time. But after seeing the work of developer Mercury Steam with their work on Metroid 2, Return of Samus. Actually, Metroid Samus Returns. This is just the reversible cover, which I love. After seeing their work with this game and all the mechanics that they put in with the melee and free aim and the speed and the graphics and just the style and personality that went into that game, into this game, they absolutely was like, okay, we can make this happen. And even supposedly has exceeded what they were originally looking for. This is Metroid Dread. It is 2D, 3D, and there's these robots called the EMMI that are chasing Samus around the facility, the planet ZDR. The Chozo have a different name for it, but we're going to call it Planet ZDR. The story is a finish of the arc of the Metroid saga where Samus meets a Metroid, using it, comes back and saves, etc., etc. It looks fantastic. Supposedly they cleaned up some of the more clunky mechanics that were in the 3DS Return of Samus, such as countering, and they've added some moves such as sliding and things like that, and it looks really good. Metroid kind of dabbles in the horror aspect. This is straight up terrifying. I can see why it's called Metroid Dread. Oh my gosh, I just now got it. I'm kidding. This robot is chasing you around and your normal weapons don't do anything to it. So you have to hide and use a lot of stealth elements in order to avoid being caught, and if you get caught, you're dead. Insta-kill. Yeah, that's no good. Thanks, Nintendo. While we wait for Metroid Prime 4, which is still in development, it switched development teams, so it got pushed back quite a bit. But we'll have this to play on, and I'm super excited that we get another 2D Metroid game. It's actually been 19 years since the last entry in the Metroid series, which would have been this game, Metroid Fusion. Metroid Dread is fantastic. It really brings the series back to the roots of Super Metroid exploration. I love it, been having a great time with it. I encourage you, please, go buy Metroid Dread. Go buy it. Sure, you can emulate it in 4K, but you shouldn't do that. We need all the support we can get. As Metroid fans really love this stuff. So please, go buy Metroid Dread. Get your friends to buy it too. So I'm going to talk about my top 5, it'll be 5, Metroid games. Let's get right back into it. Number 5. Even though it's old, the original is still the greatest. And that would be Metroid, released on the original Nintendo. This came out in 1986. It used a password system. The style is Samus Aran going through the space world of Zebes. Put in the description if you pronounce that Zebes or Zebes. I don't actually know. Going through the space world, collecting items. This game was one of the games that really grabbed my attention. It's one of my very first Nintendo games. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And the first time I beat it, the ending I got was the worst ending ever, where Samus just goes, good job. But then as I got better, I got faster, Samus did more things, and eventually figured out that Samus is a girl. Who knew? Excuse me, not a girl, but a woman. It was amazing. It was a totally revelation, because the whole time, even the instruction manual like says he does this. Like, no. Anyway, it had a password system to back up your progress as you were going through the worlds, beating Kraid and Ridley. And that music still, even to this day, the music in the game, it's just phenomenal. When I was a kid, there was one time that we had to leave somewhere, and I played Metroid on a teeny little 13-inch TV. And I was like, Mom, I gotta leave. I gotta save. And I gotta write down this password. We need to leave. So I missed one little character on the password screen, lowercase q. And on a 13-inch, on a big screen like we have today, it's not a big deal. But on a little tiny 13-inch screen with RF output, I couldn't figure out what that was, and I lost my progress. Fortunately, days later, though, I figured out that little thing that I couldn't figure out was a little curly Q and was able to restore. You kids have come a long way. Metroid was originally released on the Famicom as a disc. So this is how this originally came. And you didn't have passwords because it was a magnetic medium that could save. You could restore your progress in 3 different slots. The original Metroid was remade for the Game Boy Advance in the form of Metroid Zero Missions. Metroid Zero Missions. This is actually really pretty. So the Game Boy Advance is a far superior system to the NES and even the Super Nintendo. So we got a reimagining of this fantastic game. Modern 2D art, graphics, and a little bit of extra at the end. So after you beat Mother Brain, spoilers, there's Mother Brain at the end, Samus is flying off and shot down, crash lands to this Chizodia place, which is the ruins of the ancient Chozo people, which she has a connection to because Samus was raised by the Chozo when her parents were killed by space pirates. Kind of dark, kind of deep. Anyway, she loses her suit powers, she goes through a ruins test, and she gets everything back, and she's able to destroy the mothership. Yay. But spoilers. I'm sorry if I just spoiled that for you. But anyway, this is the way to play the original Metroid if you don't have an NES. This is a fantastic game, wonderful graphics. Highly recommend checking this out. So, for me, number five is the original Metroid, and maybe more specifically, Metroid Zero Mission. Number 4, this game is the last 2D Metroid entry in the mainline stories that we got 19 years ago. That game is Metroid Fusion, also on the Game Boy Advance. This game was released actually a day after Metroid Prime on the GameCube was released. This is a really great story and a very important entry into the series. So Samus was called by this corporation called Biologic, and they had a distress signal. And Samus goes and is infected with this X-parasite, and it corrupts her body, and she's jettisoned, and she's going back to the Galactic Federation headquarters, and they give her a vaccine. They give her a vaccine that contains Metroid's DNA, and all of a sudden it cures her X-parasite conditions, but now she has this Metroid DNA in her body. She goes back to the Biologic space station to discover that the X-parasite has infected everyone and everything. There's monsters crawling around. It's terrible. So Samus goes through further and finds in a restricted laboratory that there's Metroids in this station. What were they doing? Of course they were doing. They were using Metroids to keep the peace. Yeah, okay, that's what they were doing. So Samus decides to shut this down, and her computer, coincidentally named after Adam, which we'll talk about when we talk about Other M, it's like, no, I'm not gonna let you do that, locks her up. And then she's like, but Adam, and the computer's like, that's not my name. Eventually they figure it out. It's like, okay, I'll help you. They try and blow up the space station. She's attacked by this giant monster SA clone of Samus that's been running around chasing Samus, and it's terrifying. Defeats that. Then she gets on her ship to get ready to escape, and no, another attack! But then, spoilers, the SAX parasite that was the clone of Samus comes in and fuses with Samus, gets the ice beam, and she's able to defeat the space pirate and fly away into the distance and blow up SR-388 and all this other research. And she's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, because they're going to blame me, which they kind of are going to have to. But we'll see how that story actually finishes in Metroid Dread. This was a fantastic game. I know I kind of just spoiled a lot of things that go on in this game, but it's wonderful. Again, we get the, I can't say HD because the Game Boy Advance does not have high definition resolution, but great 2D graphics, fantastic gameplay. This is a lot of fun and an essential entry into the Metroid series. So I can't recommend this game enough. Did you know the name of the planet SR-388 actually comes from a service road in Ohio? Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Facts. A cool thing you can do with this game, if you own this and you own Metroid Prime on the GameCube, if you had a Game Boy Advance cable to GameCube connector, you can go into options in Prime, and either if you beat Prime, you can unlock the Fusion suit for Samus to play in, or if you beat this, you can unlock the original NES Metroid game on the GameCube. How cool is that? It seems sad to only call it number 4, but this is such a great game. Number 4, Metroid Fusion. Number 3, this game kind of has a very polarizing view. There are people that absolutely love it, and then there's a lot of haters. But maybe they didn't have the sun where they could see the game right, or maybe they didn't understand what the team was trying to do. So that game can none other be Metroid 2, Return of Samus. So the story behind this game is a team is sent to the planet SR-388 where the Metroids are and they're eradicated. Oops. And Samus is sent down to try and figure out what's going on and also destroy all the Metroids. Genocide. It's kind of dark. Anyway, so Samus goes down and there's 40 Metroids that she has to defeat. And then, kind of spoiler-esque, at the end, when she defeats the big Omega Nasty Metroid, there's a baby larva that pops up and befriends Samus and helps her out through the way. It's beautiful and a kind of dark, scary game. This game terrified me and still does to this day. Now, because it was on the Game Boy, there were a lot of hardware limitations that the team had to deal with. This is Yoshio Sakamoto and Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yoki, creator of Game Boy. Obviously, he knew his hardware and he knew this game. And he was really able, the team was really able to bring out a sense of dread in this game. So, because the screen is small and your character is big, you really can't see much of the world that you're descending into. And there's not much backtracking. It's a very linear game, so it's not like you can go back up to more familiar areas. Like, you keep going down and descending into this alien world. And as you go further down, the music kind of gets more and more kind of blips and bloops and a little darker. And sometimes there's just no music at all, just your footsteps and just ambient sounds. And enemies start to disappear. There's these Metroid husks that are lying around, and usually when you see one, you know, okay, here comes another boss. Saving and save points and health, they're very spread out. So there comes many a time where there's a real sense of like kind of terror where after you beat a boss, you don't have any health, you're trying to struggle to get back up to some place where you can save and not lose your progress in the game. It's just a dark, foreboding game. Terrifying. And at the end, when you're fighting the last boss, this is some dirty stuff that they do here. They don't even let you pause the game when you're fighting the last boss. But then at the very, very end, Baby Metroid comes out and helps you out. Like, okay, I've been in this alien world that I've been invading. It's very stressful. And all of a sudden, I get this peace that I'm with this little baby Metroid. And again, the game is kind of dark. Samus goes in to eradicate an entire alien race because the Galactic Federation told her to. It's like, our space pirates were simply using these Metroids to not bring peace, to control worlds. It's not the Metroid's fault that they can suck away energy power. That's a cool power, by the way. But it's a dark chapter in the game, and the Game Boy hardware really limited to this. Now, there's also some remakes that were made. There is the AM2R, another Metroid remake that's a fan project that does a fantastic job of taking some more of the more modern Super Metroid and up elements of 2D action in beautiful HD and it's hand-drawn, and it looks great, it sounds great, it's a lot of fun, but it focuses a lot on action and things like that. Really great music, and amazing that a fan project was able to go completely a new Metroid 2 game with all the maps being intact, and basically the gameplay was there, a couple extra like bosses and things like that. They did an amazing job. Nintendo officially also made their own release. This is Metroid Samus Returns, not Return of Samus, but Samus Returns for the 3DS. And this is done by the team in Madrid called Mercury Steam. This is a fantastic remake of this game. And now I would say this is the way that you should play Metroid 2. Return of Samus, or Samus Returns, as they said. This is a really cool box. It had a reversible cover. It came with the soundtrack of all the Metroid music and things like that. Awesome game, and you absolutely should play this game. But this game also focused a lot more on combat rather than, I think, the dark, foreboding elements, the invasive and unease of the original release for the Game Boy. This is a great game, great entry into the series, beautiful 3D graphics in a 2D plane. Awesome action. They also add a couple of different elements and extra bosses and things like that. All that is to say, even though this is not my favorite version of Metroid 2, this is a fantastic version of Metroid 2, but if you have an opportunity to play it the way it should be played, with a Game Boy light shining and you can't see anything and you have to be in your eyes go blind and you jump into this alien world, this is the way to do it. Metroid 2 Return of Samus, or Samus Returns. Number 2, this is where we get to the good stuff. This is one of the greatest, not just one of the greatest Metroid games, but one of the greatest games ever created. What game could I possibly be talking about? None other than Metroid Trilogy. See what I cheated? You thought I was going to pick one game? Yeah, I'm totally cheating. Metroid Trilogy, Metroid Prime Trilogy is my number 2. Okay, yes, I'm obviously cheating because you know me, I can't do top 5 Metroid games. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to cheat and say the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Now, of these 3, I go back and forth. This trilogy set contains the original Metroid Prime, which is almost perfect. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which somehow might even be a little bit better than the original Metroid Prime. That's up for debate. Let me know what you think in the comments. And then on the Wii, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. All right, it's story time. So Samus intercepts a distress call on the frigate Orpheon of these space pirates. Why is she helping space pirates? I don't remember that specifically why she's doing this. She fights this parasite queen, and Meta Ridley shows up, which is like a metal version of Ridley from the first one. He's freaking awesome. And she escapes. Her suit loses her powers. She lands on the planet Talon 4, which is apparently the Chozo race lived there many decades ago. A meteor called Leviathan had crash landed on the planet, and it emits this stuff, this radiation called Phazon. And space pirates were trying to collect this stuff, but the Chozo race locked it away, and Samus goes on a quest to try and find this, and she fights big nasty monsters and collects artifacts. And at the crater core is this nasty thing, this Metroid Prime. Oh, that's what the game is called, it's Metroid Prime! And it's a horrifying monster, it's awesome. And she's able to defeat it, but then it kind of morphs into this clone-looking thing after it absorbed her Phazon suit, and Dark Samus is born. Then that transitions to Metroid 2 Echoes, where Dark Samus goes to the planet Aether. Samus chases Dark Samus down, and more Phazon, and eventually Dark Samus turns into Dark Aether. And one of the best boss fights in any video game is in this game. The Quadraxis boss fight is fantastic. Great action with this. But Samus defeats Dark Aether, and somehow Dark Samus is reborn again and tries to invade the Galactic Federation and the Space Pirates and steals a computer and fuses with that and turns into this big monster. Meanwhile, Samus is corrupted. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, that's what that comes from. Samus is corrupted by Phazon, and eventually she's able to blow up the supercomputer that has Dark Samus, and then all is well in the galaxy until Metroid 3 comes out, which we'll talk about later. I love this series of games. The world of Metroid Prime is absolutely gorgeous. First-person shooting, but not shooting. Exploration, exploring a huge, beautiful world, a dark, insidious world, alien life forms, enemies from the 2D games that you recognize, but in 3D form, amazing, huge, multi-segmented boss fights, lock-on controls, being able to turn into a Morph Ball. And you'd think that it'd be almost impossible to realize a world like Metroid in 3D, but Retro Studios was able to do this. Absolutely stunning. Great, almost perfect gameplay, balance between exploration and action and maneuverability. All the actions were, everything you could do was so you can explore the world. And what a world it was to explore. I absolutely loved this game and played the snot out of it, or played the phase-on out of it. Ha! It was really cool too. You can, as I mentioned before, you can link this game with Metroid Prime Fusion and unlock the original NES game or change the color of Samus Aran's suit. Yoshio Sakamoto was the producer and co-creator of Metroid at the time. And he originally, after Super Metroid, it's like, all right, we need to do a Metroid game for the N64, but the controller was kind of unwieldy, and Super Metroid was so good that people were kind of scared of making a game after it. So Miyamoto-san went to Retro Studios in Austin, Texas, and saw some projects that the team was working on, and like, okay, I really like this first-person engine, let's use it for Metroid. And they were super pumped and hyped to do this, so they dropped all their other projects and just focused on this 3D engine, Metroid. In fact, it used to be Miyamoto, one of his table flipping moments. So game originally was third person, so you can see your character and stuff, but Miyamoto thought it'd be easier to explore if it was first person. And this is not a first person shooter. Metroid Prime is a first-person adventure game, first-person exploration game. There's an excellent interview of one of the producers of Metroid Prime that talks about some of the systems that they were working with, how boss fights like the Quadraxis are possible because the camera is perfect. You can always see where Samus is, how much detail they went into the lore of scanning all the objects and writing all the words and make sure everything is correct. There's a lot of crunch in the original Metroid Prime 1, and it really burned out a lot of the folks at the studio, but for 2 and 3, they were able to work correctly without crunch, and thus producing a better game and more employee morale. This Trilogy port was done by 4 people in the dev team, and they got a chance to clean up like controls and bugs, and Nintendo had this huge list of like, hey, we went through and read every single entry, make sure you make these adjustments so it fits correctly in the canon. It's like, good grief. So hundreds and hundreds of pages of things to make Metroid Trilogy the definitive way to play these games. Who knew that you would be able to actually navigate a space adventure world in 3D effectively, being able to jump, being able to lock on enemies, shoot, and explore, but it could be done. And we saw this with Metroid Prime. So that's my number 2 Metroid game. All right, it's me. So we have to talk about an honorable mention, a game that is not one of my favorites, but it's still an important game in the series that should be at least played or understood. And that game is Metroid Other M. This was developed by Team Ninja. So as you might guess, Team Ninja is responsible for Ninja Gaiden Trilogy, which I absolutely loved and was able to complete it on hard. That's what's up. So there's a lot of action focus, and there's also a lot of story. Samus does a lot of talking, and there's lots of going back and forth, and so we can get more of who Samus Aran is as a person, as a woman, as a bounty hunter. So in this game, Samus is searching for bounty and comes across this ship called the Bottle Ship, and actually meets the Galactic Federation Platoon Number 7 with their old commanding officer, Adam Malkovich. That name's going to come up later on in other Metroid games. But the Bottle Ship secretly has been, of course, harvesting Metroids, and Samus doesn't want to let that happen. And they meet someone named Madeline Bergen. MB. What could that stand for? She's like, oh yeah, this is all cool, and then it's actually not. And then her commanding officer is like, no, actually, it's just a bunch of twists and turns. I don't want to spoil too many things. I've spoiled a lot of things in this video already. I apologize if you're planning to play these games cold. But things are not as they seem. There's clones, there's switching, there's sacrifice, and Samus has to go back and retrieve the helmet that Adam used, and etc., etc. The action was done in a typical side-scrolling view, but to control the game, you actually took your Wii remote and pointed and shot, which was okay, except control transitions were a little clunky in doing this, and it was just an uneven type of action game. Not terrible, but just not what I would expect from a Metroid game. So this is still something you should check out, but I would check out my other games, the other Metroid games that I list before going into this one. There's also Metroid Federation Force, and Metroid Blast Pinball, and Metroid Hunters, and, well, let's get to the real thing. What could my number one favorite Metroid game be? I mean, it should be really obvious here. The original Super Metroid. I can't say enough good things about this game. Released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo. You have to think about the mindset of a gamer in 1994, having just played the original Metroid game and then upgrading to something like this. You plug this game in and you're already greeted with this really sinister soundtrack. It's haunting horror, like sci-fi soundtrack. Cool scaling effects. Stereo, amazing music. Battery backup for save rather than using a password. Super Nintendo had cool Mode 7 effects. Mode 7 were things like scaling, rotation of hardware and backgrounds and sprites, transparencies, all those things we were not used to on a video game system. And full voice. The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace. Like, oh, the game is talking to me, and it sounds like a movie. It says intro like a movie. A very alien-esque movie. And you go down into the space station, and you're greeted by, oh, there's a little baby Metroid from Metroid 2. Oh, how fantastic. And then Ridley comes up and steals it, and then the base starts to shake again, those Mode 7 effects, and there's scaling and rotation, the ship flies off, and then you start the actual adventure, and it's this huge, amazing, beautiful world. So full of just creatures and ambiance and atmosphere. I hate that I keep saying the word atmosphere, but it's so relevant. And what's cool about this is I replayed this not this long ago. I'm thinking, oh, this is all nostalgia talking. I've replayed this a couple of years ago. I was hooked the entire time. It is amazing, the breadcrumbing that they do. Like, oh, here's a block over here that you see in the beginning. How do I get to that? Oh, I can't get down under this. How do I get to that? Oh, I have this ball. I can go ahead. Let me go over here. Let me go here. Okay, I want to go try and find this one explorer. I'm going to try and find this one more area. When I get there and get past that, then I'm going to stop playing. And it just doesn't stop playing. To this day, Super Metroid still retains some of the best 2D exploration, backtracking forward, but still being forward, Metroidvania. That's where that term came from. Gameplay. It stands the test of time. This is the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom version of this. I would argue which art is better. I kind of like them both, but I think in Japan we get this cool Metroid about to eat Samus. The ending, which I'm not going to talk about because it's so amazing. You get to see the culmination of this little baby Metroid and what happens to you in it and what happens. Oh, it's great. It's great. Okay, spoilers. The Metroid's your baby friend and mother brain. You shit is awesome. So, breathe. This is not only my favorite Metroid game. Super Metroid is one of my favorite games of all time to this day. I know some people, I was talking to some folks recently that had not played this, like, it's old and 2D, it's dumb, the things are done before it. Returnal on PS5 does it better. Hold your roll. I encourage anyone, if you like, I don't know, fun games and great game design and exploration, this still hits it. It's still one of the best ways to play a adventure game in the year of 2021. Super Metroid. Don't miss it. Play it. Love it. Tell me how many times you beat it. See how fast you can beat it. You get a percentage of how many items that you found in the time that you did it. I was able to do 100% back when I was a kid. The last time I played through it, I was able to get 99. I think I want to blame the children for letting me find that last missile tank. So, Super Metroid. Now again, only my favorite Metroid game, but one of my top favorite games of all time. Okay, the official pronunciation of the planet is Zebes. I can confirm it's Zebes. If you play Other M, Samus says Zebes. Also, if you look at the Japanese translation in the Japanese manual, it says Zebesu. So Zebesu, Zebes. Which is also, if you look at the intro of the first Metroid game on the NES, it says Zebeth. So Zebes and Zebeth are kind of the same, kind of like Eris and Aerith are the same. So, final answer, Zebes. Not Zebes, not Zebes, Zebes, I think. So that's it. My top 5-ish favorite Metroid games of all time. I'm a huge fan. This Metroid's about to eat me and I'm cool, but Samus has got my back. Should I have worn this shirt instead of this one? This is why we need more Metroid stuff. It's a 35th anniversary. There's other games that are out there, Nintendo. I'm just saying. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate you letting me go down this memory lane of some of my favorite shooting exploration games that have ever been created. Please like, subscribe, smash that notification icon so you get alerts the second we drop new content. And remember, gamers who play together stay together, so love one another, keep gaming, be safe. Love you. Peace. Pew, 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 pew. Dun, 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 dun. The biologic headquarters, biologic space station. Okay, see, this is why we can never overcome.